What is going on, everybody? I'm back today to talk about another film that received some Oscar nominations, and this was a film that I was actually very excited to see for a number of reasons. For starters, I am a huge fan of Alice Walker's The Color Purple. I think it is a brilliant novel. I think it's one of the best books ever written. I think Alice Walker is a genius. The story is such a beautiful, emotional, heartbreaking tale of perseverance and loving yourself and overcoming the worst trauma imaginable to get out on the other side, and how life just can deal you a bad hand. And it has great characters and it's a great story. And I'm a huge fan of the novel, but I'm also a huge fan of the original Broadway musical. It's funny because the night before I watched this movie, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and in Columbus, Ohio right now, there's a wonderful production of the Color Purple musical that is being put on right now. And I went and saw it the night before I watched the movie, and it was one of the most beautiful and moving experiences I've had in quite some time. I cried multiple times. The performers were absolutely amazing, so dedicated to the material. They were giving off-Broadway to Broadway level performances that were amazing. The vocalists were incredible. The music was amazing. I just could praise it over and over again. If you are in the Columbus, Ohio area, please go watch this performance. It is amazing, and the people putting it on are so passionate about it, and it is 100% worth it. So I am very passionate about this material, and I love it a lot, and I love musicals. And so I was very excited to see what a big budget Hollywood adaptation of something like Alice Walker's The Color Purple would look like. There's been a lot of adaptations of musicals recently. Even earlier this year, there was the adaptation of Mean Girls. There's an adaptation of Wicked coming very soon. So people want to see Broadway musicals turned into big budget Hollywood movies. And I'm going to talk about the Color Purple musical today. Color Purple is directed by Blitz Bazawule, a decade-spanning tale of love and resilience and of one woman's journey to independence. Celie faces many hardships in her life, but ultimately finds extraordinary strength and hope in the unbreakable bonds of sisterhood. So, as I said, I was super hyped up to watch this because I just watched that local production of The Color Purple. I'm a huge fan of The Color Purple in general and what it represents and how beautiful of a story it is. And this movie misses the mark entirely. I was so disappointed in this movie. It was really strange to watch a version of the Broadway musical the night before and to get such a heavy emotional reaction from it, and then to the next day watch the Hollywood production and feel little to nothing other than the emotion that I have already built up towards the characters. And so I'm going to talk about it a little bit today and give you my reasonings why. At the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Celie and Nettie. They are sisters. They're living together with their abusive father, and he is sexually abusive, and he gets Celie pregnant twice. She has 2 children by this father, and he gives both of them away. And we see the 2 girls trying to live their lives to the best of their ability, despite the fact that they're being put in this horrible situation. And throughout their lives and interacting at the beginning, we are later introduced to the character of Mr., played by Colman Domingo, who wants to marry Nettie, but the father is very hesitant and says, no, you cannot marry Nettie. I won't allow it, but you can marry my daughter Celie. And he finds Celie to be completely and totally ugly and awful, and he wants nothing to do with her, but he agrees anyway because of a barter that they make. So Celie ends up moving in with Mr., who is incredibly abusive, not only sexually, but physically, and treats her horrible, makes her clean up after him and take care of her children. And one night, Nettie shows up to the house and says, Daddy is trying to abuse me as well. I can't live there anymore. And so Celie pleads with Mr. so that Nettie can live there. And he reluctantly agrees. Well, there's an issue that happens where Nettie is asleep at night and Mr. tries to come in and assault her in her sleep. She manages to run away, and he says never to come back again. So the 2 sisters are separated at that point, and years of time go by. Throughout the film, we watch years of time go by, and Celie wants to know what happens to her sister. Well, after that, we are introduced to the character of Shug Avery, who is a musician who Mr. is very familiar with. He's had romantic flings with, And the entire crux of the film is the relationship between Celie and Shug Avery. And she comes into her life and teaches her how to be strong and to build her up and to stand up for herself. And there's also the character of Sophia, played by Danielle Brooks, who is actually nominated for an Academy Award, who also teaches Celie how to stand up for herself and to not take crap from people. And the film is watching Celie on her very long journey throughout all of these years. So as I said, I thought this adaptation was really bad. And I'm very upset to say that because I love The Color Purple, and I think everything that it represents is incredible. Not only is this a beautiful story told by a Black author about the Black community in a way that shows the struggles that they dealt with even post-Civil War, the horrors that they dealt with a character like Celie in her own community, and showing this level of perseverance and this uncharacteristic relationship for the time period. And you know, there's a lot of different moving pieces throughout this, and there's a lot of different plot points to talk about, and it's going to be hard to narrow all my thoughts down, but I'm going to try my best to explain why I was disappointed and kind of give you the compare and contrast to why I love the novel and why I love the original Broadway adaptation. So as I said, the crux of the film is the relationship between Shug Avery and Celie's character, and there are implications not only in the book but also in the original musical that these characters have a deep emotional love, and that love could be romantic love. And it's never 100% explicitly stated that it's like, oh, they're going to end up in a relationship together, but they kiss each other at one point during the film, and even in this film, the kiss shows up. But in the Broadway musical and in the book, there's a lot more conversation surrounding their relationship, and there's a lot of jealousy on Celie's end when Shug Avery goes out and spends time with men and sleeps around and does all these things. And there's a big crux to how they both build as characters through their relationship and how they find love through one another in this moment where it feels impossible to find someone that you can share anything with. And their relationship is one of the most beautiful I've ever read or ever seen in the Broadway production. In this movie, their relationship is so glazed over in a way that completely misses the point of the book. We get up to the point of the kiss, and after the kiss, Shug Avery's character is virtually kicked to the side, other than the trip that they take to Memphis, Tennessee at one point, and she comes back into play in the third act. There are so many crucial, pivotal, emotional moments between those characters that are completely swept under the rug and forgotten about, to where any sort of emotional push and pull between these characters is gone. And the beauty in their relationship and the love that they have for one another never really resonates like it does in the original Broadway musical or in the novel. And it's really disappointing. This film was directed by a man, and honestly, I think that's probably to the film's detriment. I think a movie that is so much about the empowerment of women and about women thriving and going through these horrible situations and building each other up. I feel like if a woman was at the helm, that a lot of those nuances from the musical and from the book would have come through a lot more. And that was really disappointing to me because of how big of a part of the story that their relationship is. I do think Sophia's character, who is also a really great emotional crux of the book and of the original musical, does a really nice job and was probably one of my favorite characters in the film. I think that the Colman Domingo, who plays Mr., did a very great job. He plays villain very well, and a lot of the performances are really good. The problem is, if you're looking at the original Broadway musical, there are a ton of songs added into this production that don't add anything to the story. They're not as good as the original music from the original Broadway musical, and they just feel like they're filling up time. And the original Broadway musical is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. This thing was like 2 hours and 25 minutes. Like, they add another 10 minutes, and it feels like it accomplishes so much less. As far as the visual style, this movie looks bland. There is no color. It is so just flat and shot so blandly. The way that the musical numbers are shot, the shot selections in my mind, as someone who went to film school for production, I was just baffled at how distant a lot of the shot selections were. There was no creativity in the production design. Everything just felt like it took place in a room or in like an empty street. There's one scene in particular where it's really the first romantic moment between Celie and Suge's character, and it's this sequence where she's like dancing on a turntable, and it's really cool in theory, but the CGI looks awful. It just really looks kind of cheesy, like a made-for-TV movie, and it kind of took away from that. There's a song towards the end of the musical that Celie sings called "I'm Here," and it's one of my favorite songs in any musical, and they have her sing it when she's in the shop and outside of the shop, and it is just so flat and bland, and it takes away from any of the emotional crux of the song. You really just don't feel like Celie's character changes at all in this. It's like she still stays really timid and still struggles to stand up for herself. Aside from one moment between her and Mr., there's a ton of moments in the musical and in the book towards the tail end that Celie really sticks up for herself and really just kind of puts herself out there, that it's so empowering and beautiful. And in this, it's just like she's kind of the same character at the end of the film as she was at the beginning, and that's missing the entire point. I also think it's important to state one of the elements in the book is, if you listen to the song The Color Purple, or even in the Alice Walker novel, the thing about God, Celie's character starts to be completely uninterested in religion. She doesn't want anything to do with God anymore. She thinks that God has let her down because of all the trauma she's experienced. And in the book and in the original musical, Suge says that God really isn't, the importance of God isn't in an entity. God is in you. God is in the things that you see. It's the power that you feel in yourself. And it's an incredibly beautiful message. And in this film, it kind of felt like they were kind of tapering back into like, nah, it's just God. Like, you pray and he'll take care of things, and it'll be fine if you just lean into this, which is missing the entire point of the novel and the original musical. It's like a completely different message that just isn't anywhere near as powerful or anywhere near as compelling. The movie ended, and I just found myself feeling so incredibly disappointed. And like I said, the performances in this are really good. I think most of the actors do a good job. Colman Domingo and Danielle Brooks are the standout. I really like Taraji P. Henson, but I honestly think they could have picked someone better to play Suge Avery. I don't feel like they really captured the essence of just like how powerful of a character she is and how commanding of the screen that she is. The local production, the person that played Suge Avery that I saw, was just completely and totally commanding of your attention throughout the entire production. And I just didn't get that from Taraji in this. And she's a phenomenal actress who has done amazing things throughout her career. But I just felt like someone else could have brought more to the table. Fantasia Barrino, who plays Celie, did fine, but I also feel like that role could have been casted with someone different, because maybe it's not necessarily her fault. She has a great singing voice, but the character just felt like that Celie was in the same spot at the beginning of the movie as she was at the end, which completely misses the mark of the entire story. And I don't know, like I said, I have a lot to say about this. It really disappointed me. I don't want to go on too much of a tirade because I could talk for a half hour about all the things that I felt like were wrong. But aside from that, it's bloated in its runtime. Like I said, the visuals are incredibly bland. I love the music from the Broadway musical, so obviously the music translated here, I still like the music. And it's not the worst thing in the world, like it's not the most miserable experience ever, but I think if you have an opportunity to see a local production or a Broadway production of The Color Purple, the musical, or read Alice Walker's book, you're going to get a lot more out of it. And I didn't even mention the Steven Spielberg film. I have actually never seen the Steven Spielberg version of the movie. I've read the book and seen the Broadway musical. I plan on watching it at some point. I just didn't like this all that much, and I'm disappointed because I feel like this material deserves to be represented in a way that's incredible and showcases the power and the beauty of this story, and I just don't think the film did it justice. So have you seen The Color Purple? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I was incredibly disappointed by this, and I think it's because of the amount of love I have for the material, and I just wish it was executed in a different way. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.